Hi, welcome to our webinar series, From Struggle to Support, a complete guide to the Intervention 504 IEP process. This series is sponsored by Revive Technologies. And in this video, we are going to talk about the referral and evaluation process. So when I say referral, I mean referral for considering special education services, and then evaluations that are conducted if the team decides to go that route. So for any meeting where we are considering special education services, we do have forms that we fill out that are used as common tools that we collect our information and data with. So this is a sample of what the referral form may look like. As you can see, this first section is going to be just basic information about your child. It does include vision and hearing screening that may have already been done at the school. If not, if the team decides to request evaluations, that will be part of it because we always want to make sure that the child is able to see and hear well, and that's not impacting their ability to do well with instruction. Then the next section that you may see is talking about your students' strengths. And I know coming to this meeting as a parent, especially if you've requested this meeting, you may be very bogged down in thinking about the things that your child is struggling with. But this is important because we know that every child has things that they do well at, and we want to acknowledge that. And that also will help us kind of help to figure out the disconnect between, we know that the child can do this well, but is struggling with this. Where is that breakdown happening? It just kind of helps us get a better idea of what they can do compared to what they cannot do. So we're going to talk about academic strengths, functional skill strengths, behavior and social skill strengths, what they're doing well with as far as study and work skills, communication skill strengths, and then their fine and gross motor strengths. And then the next section begins the reasons for the referral, so your areas of concern. So in this part of it, we're looking at concerns for language arts, mathematics, and then behavioral and social behaviors that are concerning. So again, it's just a matter of kind of checking them off. And as you can see in each section, there is an other section where things can be notated, specifically what is being seen in the classroom that may not be listed on the actual form. And then we also have the same for health medical. Here is where you would notate if there are any already diagnosed medical or mental health conditions, and then any concerns with communication and motor skills. And then this last section, study work skills, concerns, daily living skills that the child may be having trouble with. And then there's a section if there's just any other concerns that didn't quite fit into one of the other boxes. And then the next section, we're really going to look at data. So looking at that information and the numbers that we already have kind of to pinpoint where the child is at currently. So this first section A is the instructional practices, the interventions that are in place to address those concerns. So this is where we're going to document if there's already been an intervention plan in place, what that is, what types of interventions are being provided, and then the frequency and intensity, as well as how the child has responded. And then section B is evaluations or information that you've provided as a parent. So if you do have documentation of diagnoses, those would be put there, as well as if there's any private evaluations that you've had done, we want to capture that. And then the next section is assessment data. So this may be things such as scores on EOGs, or it may be assessments that are given throughout the county or state that kind of track those foundational skills. So things like foundational reading scores or math scores. The next section is observations by teachers or related service providers, administrators. So basically just a narrative of what people who are working with the students or people who have knowledge of the students have seen when they've come into the classroom, to kind of observe for a little bit what behaviors, what concerns they're seeing. And then E is just if there's any other information not covered in one of those sections that we need to add. And then the final piece there is summarizing. So looking at all of the information A through E, what do we know? For example, we may know that, Bob is struggling with decoding, with actually sounding out words that are multisyllabic, and he's been receiving intervention for 3 months now and has made minimal growth. So something as simple as that. And we may also know, if we know that he's diagnosed with ADHD, that would be put in the summary as well. So when we're looking at all that information, we are making a team decision to decide what we want to do. And there are a few options, and it's dependent on a case-by-case basis as to what's going on with the child and the information that the team has. One option is that the team may decide not to test. They'll look at the information. They say, well, he is responding to intervention, and it is fast enough. It's not as fast as we all want. We want him to automatically know everything tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. But he is on track to progress at a rate that he will catch up. So we're not going to test. The team may decide that they already have everything to determine eligibility. Doesn't usually happen, but occasionally you may have had your child privately evaluated, and everything that would be needed to determine eligibility is already there. We have the psychological, educational, vision, hearing, depending on whatever area of evaluation of eligibility you're looking at. It's a long, lengthy list of things that you would need to have, and occasionally we already have all of those, but typically we do not. And so the team would, if they're moving forward with considering special education, go ahead and check that box to conduct the evaluation, and they're going to ask for whatever pieces they need. So if you've already brought in a psychological that the team is going to be able to use, then they may leave that off of the list of evaluations that they need to request. So this is, again, specific to North Carolina, but there are 14 areas of disability that we look at, and you can see those there. They are autism spectrum disorder, deaf blindness, deafness, developmental delay, which is good up until a student is 8 or 3rd grade, whichever happens first, emotional disability, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, specific learning disability, speech language impairment, traumatic brain injury, and then visual impairment. And during the course of your meeting, you would be talking about which of those categories you think that the child may fall into, and then you would request evaluations based on that. I always like to err on the side of caution. If there's more than one possible area of eligibility, I like to explore all of those and get all of the evaluations so we can consider everything. So this is the actual form that's filled out for you to give consent for evaluations and kind of checking off which evaluations are going to be done, and it's directly based on the areas of concern. So for example, motor would not be requested unless it is a required component for the area of eligibility that you are considering for the child, or if you have areas about concerns about the area of motor skills. But typically these areas overall cover physical health, educational, psychological, which does include an intellectual assessment piece, which would give you that IQ score, social appraisal, speech language, motor, adaptive behavior, and then a vocational evaluation. Again, that's going to be certainly for much older students, and then other, if there's anything else that the team needs to add, sometimes specifically that's related to assessments to look at autism. So this is our prior written notice. So this is the form that is a summary of our decisions made. So this is going to detail out that the team decided maybe not to evaluate, or the team is going to evaluate and nothing else would be checked here. You're only going to click have something on eligibility if we're not evaluating. Otherwise, the other boxes here that are grouped together are going to would typically come together later once all the testing is actually done and you come back to discuss eligibility. If for some reason you already have everything and it does indicate that there's not eligibility for special education, then you could possibly fall into one of the other categories there of not being eligible for special education or being eligible, and this is the area of eligibility, and possible related services that the child is receiving. So again, this is continuing on with our summary of decisions. We're going to detail out what the team did decide to do and decided not to do. And then we're going to explain why, which is basically what this big section right here is. So we're telling why we made the decisions that we did, if there were any other possible options that we considered, we would put those in there as well. And then what information, what evaluations do we use to make our decisions? And then were there any other factors, anything else that happened that affected our decisions? So this is basically the evaluation process in a nutshell. I hope this answered your questions, and I hope you'll join me for the next video, which is talking about the actual initial IEP if a child does qualify for special education services.